Welcome, Lee here from Play Guitar Academy. Today I will show how practicing diatonic arpeggios inside my scale patterns changed the game for me. But before we get started, to get the most out of this arpeggio lesson, we need to open up the entire fretboard and stop playing in just one or two patterns. Take a second, click the link in the description, and download my free Big 4 scale pattern worksheet. It's going to change your guitar playing, and you'll start feeling comfortable playing all over the fretboard. Today I'm playing the key of C major, and I'm going to focus on pattern 1. When I first learned arpeggios, they were centered around chords or just mapped across the fretboard like this. I spent a lot of time on them and I rarely used them. Once I learned where the diatonic arpeggios were in each of my scale patterns, I started to be able to take control of them and use them in my writing, in my improv. Today I have 3 diatonic arpeggio practice routines that will not only help your fingers, but they'll train your ear to take control of arpeggios. Let's go ahead and take a look at exercise number 1. Okay, exercise number 1, what we're doing is we're taking pattern number 1 and we are going to make an arpeggio off of each note of the scale. So how we're going to do that is we're going to find our starting note. C is our first starting note, and we're going to skip every other note. That gives us a C, an E, and a G for our first arpeggio. 3 notes. That's at the 8th fret on the E, 7th fret on the A, and then the 5th fret on the D string. That's the easy one. Next, what we go to is the second degree of the scale. This is a D note. We're starting at the 5th fret of the A string, and we're going to skip every other note again as well. So that gives me a D, an F, and an A. That's a D minor triad, right? So we're getting these diatonic arpeggios, major, minor, and guess what? The next one's going to be minor as well too. So we're going to start with the E this time. E, G, B, skipping every other note. That is E, G, B. That is an E minor triad. So far we have major, minor, minor. Now we're going to go to the 8th fret of the A string. That's our F. And if we skip every other note in the scale, we get F, A, and C. That's an F major triad. Next we go to G. And if we skip every note, we have G, B, and D. That's a G major triad. Next we go to A. That's at the 7th fret of the D string. Every other note gives us A, C, and E. Then we have B. If we go every other note, we get a diminished triad, B, D, and F. And then finally, we end up back at 1, C, E, G, C. Can you hear the chords going by as we go through this? It's very, very cool. Next, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to go descending. So we're going to start with our C major triad. I'm going to start with the G, the 5th, 3rd root. And that's the formula we're going to go back. 5th, 3rd root of each note. So the note that we're focusing on is the C note at the 5th fret of the G string. But we'll start at the 5th of that. That's the 8th fret on the B string. G, E, C. So now we're going to go to our diminished triad, our B diminished triad. That's our F, D, B. And now we're going to go back to our A minor triad, E, C, A. So we're ending on the root note of each of the chords. And now we're going to go to a G major triad. That's D, B, G. And then back to the F major triad, C, A, F. And then we're going to go to the E minor triad, B, G, E. And then the D minor triad, A, F, D. And then back to the C major triad, G, E, C. this is a great exercise. You can do it in all of the patterns. I just picked pattern 1 to make it easy to teach from. But going through these arpeggio notes and hearing how they're strong, you can hear the chord change each time. These are the strong notes. Say you're playing over a chord progression and it may be a C, an F, and a G. Well, you can easily find by doing this exercise what are the arpeggio notes for each of those chords. It's really important. If you use too many arpeggios in a row, it can sound dated or sterile. I found that using arpeggios here and there like spices can create extremely melodic licks. This next exercise, it helps you move back and forth between the diatonic arpeggios and your scale notes. So for each measure of this exercise, we will be going up an arpeggio, a diatonic arpeggio, and back the scale. So if we look here, this first one we're going to start on is C. We're in the key of C. So we have 8th fret on the low E, 7 on the A, 5 on the D, and 5 on the G. That's C, E, G, and C. So 1, 3, 5, 1. And then from this root note that's up high, we're going to work our way back the scale. Now when we move to the next measure, as you've probably figured out by now, we're going through the diatonic chords. So now we're going to make an arpeggio, a D minor arpeggio. That's 5 on A, 8 on A, 7 on D, 7 on G. And then come back, pattern 1 of the C major scale. All the way back to the note we started with, the D. Next, we're starting on the 7th fret. This is going to be an E minor arpeggio. And back down the scale. So we come back to the E. Now we're going to do this for F. This F, A, C, F, and back the scale. So we hit the F, G, B, D, G, A, C, E, A, back the scale to the A. There was our B diminished, and then we end up with C. And members to the Academy can get this PDF with all the tablature on it, but also I have a backing track that goes through each of the diatonic chords. So C major for one measure, D minor for the next, E minor for the next. That's perfect for practicing this over. So for exercise number 3, I wanted to show you something a little bit different, something that uses a little tension and release. And this is a device that I love, and it can make any lick sound interesting. It's a surround. One way of playing a surround is to play, if you find a note that you want to feature, you can play the next scale note and then a half step behind that note and eventually reaching that target note. For example, if your target is a C note, play the next scale note, which is a D, and then play a half step, whether it's in the scale or not, a half step behind your target note. That would be a B in this instant. Can you hear how these two notes surround the C and create some great tension and release? Here's an exercise that surrounds the root note of each diatonic arpeggio and then finishes the arpeggio. So we're going to start with a pickup. That is 5th fret on the A string, 7th fret on the low E, and our first note on the next measure is our C. So that's exactly what we explained. We have a D, a B, those are surrounding the C note. Then we finish the arpeggio. So you hear that surround the root and then play the arpeggio. Now we do the same thing, but for the D minor, right? So our D minor arpeggio is 5, 8 on the A, 7 on D, 7 on G. We're going to start on the 7th fret. That's our E. And then we're going to go half step behind our D, which is the 4th fret. This is C sharp. So it sounds like this. So far we have C, surround, arpeggio, surround, arpeggio. Let's go to the E. This is an E minor sound. That arpeggio is E, G, B, E. That's 7 on A, 5 on D, 4 on G, and 5 on the B string. But we're going to surround that first note. So the next note in the scale is an F. So we'll start on the F, and then we'll play a D sharp, 1/2 step below our E. So that's 8th fret, 6th fret, 7th fret, all on the A string. As we move up, our next note is F. And we have an F major arpeggio. And so to surround that, 5th fret on the D, that's our G note, and a 1/2 step behind that F is the E. So it's 5 on D, 7 on A, and then finally our arpeggio. So far. See here how we're climbing up the diatonic arpeggios as we go with the surround on the first note. Let's keep going. Now we have a G major arpeggio that starts on the 5th fret of the D string. The B is the 4th fret of the G. The D is 7th fret of the G. And then we have another G 8th fret on the B string. So let's surround that 5. 7 on that same string on the D string. That is our A note. And then we'll go to an F sharp, a 1/2 step below our G. That's the 4th fret. So all together. Now our next arpeggio is an A minor arpeggio. That's 7 on D, 5, 5, 5 on the G, B, and then the high E strings. We're going to surround that first note, the 7. So we're going to go up to the next chord tone, which is a B, 4th fret on the G, and then 1/2 step behind that A note. It's a G sharp, 6th fret on the D. Next, we have a B diminished arpeggio. 4th fret on the G, 7th fret on the G, 6th fret on the B, and then we have a B up top, 7th fret on the high E string, and we'll surround that B. So we're going to play a C, which is on the 5th fret, and then an A sharp, which is on the 3rd fret, both of those on the G string. And then slide up to the 4, 4, that's our B, 7, 6, 7. And then finally, we're going to finish this off with our C arpeggio. And we're going to surround the first note. That's going to be a D note on the 7th fret of the G string. And then a B note, which is the 4th fret on the G string. And then the C arpeggio. Thanks for playing along today, and I hope you enjoyed these exercises. Thanks to all of our Academy members over at PlayGuitarAcademy.com who are tearing into the tab and guitar profiles from this lesson right now. Don't forget to download my free Big 4 scale pattern worksheet. It's going to make all of this easier for you. And as always, let me know what you think in the comments. Have a great practice. I'll see you in the next video.